You've read the title and you've seen the thumbnail. It's a fairly normal thing to wonder, so no, I will not be giving context from where this idea came from. Though before we get to demolishing this band of children, I think we should give some backstory to why we're brawling in the first place. It all started 5 minutes ago. Flashback. It was a beautiful day in Phoenix, Arizona. And in the local McDonald's, Isaac was working away, soul already crushed. And all was well, until in walked the pinnacle of pyre, the biggest beefcake, the meatiest man. Me. I sauntered up to the cashier and asked for only the most masculine of meals. Can I have a Happy Meal, please?
Okay.
After receiving my meal, I left. However, outside I felt it. A charge in the air, a feeling of nausea. Something's wrong. So I quickly opened up the meal and... Wait, okay, hold on. I know you want to see me deeply explain how I win a fight against a 6-year-old, but before that, we need to explain some rules. We'll want a, clean fight, after all. So, rule 1, this may be fairly obvious, but I'll say it anyway. Every fight will be a 1 versus 1, with an obvious exception. By the way, for the sake of clarity, familiars don't count towards this rule. Rule 2. The Isaacs will have access to their starter gear. This includes their passives, actives, trinkets, and pickups. Rule 3. The Isaac stats are going to be taken into account and heavily determine the outcome of the fight. The only stats that aren't taken into account are shot speed and luck. Rule 4. All items and systems will work how they do in Isaac. This will make more sense later. Rule 5. I do not have any gear. My weapon is my body. Rule 6. All Isaac's range stats have been heavily nerfed to effectively melee range. This rule is in place as if it wasn't, it would just be me getting sniped for 34 battles straight. However, characters with a higher or lower range will still benefit or hurt from that stat. And lastly, Rule 7, there's no ties, bar 2 exceptions. It's either I win or I lose. So let's get ready to rumble. Coughing Baby versus Atomic Bomb. This is an easy win, but let's break it down. Since Isaac is effectively your starter character, he's probably the most balanced one out of the bunch, with average stats across the board and fairly decent health. While he doesn't fall short in any stats, he doesn't excel in any either. Additionally, Isaac doesn't have any tricks up his sleeve. He's got his D6, but well, that's useless in this scenario. His other trick isn't though. Isaac also starts with a bomb, which sounds fairly dangerous and would heavily weigh the odds in his favour, but let me explain my logic on why this isn't the case. For starters, Isaac can't throw bombs. He can only place them and move them around via tears or his body, meaning he can't really ambush or surprise me with them. Additionally, bombs have a fuse time of around 5 seconds. Not that long, but just enough time to react to a bomb and either dodge or even potentially push it back at him. Lastly, this is definitely probably a bit controversial to say, but how much do bombs really hurt? While they do deal 100 damage to enemies, they only do a hurt to Isaac. So with that logic, we can assume yes, bombs hurt, but not enough for a one-shot or to completely turn the fight. I mean, ultimately they don't help much, they're very high risk for little reward. So for those reasons, Isaac is completely stomped by me. He is a child and I am an adult, so I win. So I feel like people would just assume this is another stomp. Maggie is never really seen as especially strong in any way, especially strength-wise. However, the more I thought about it, the more I realized she would be fairly tough. Let's break her down. So, Maggie's stats are identical to Isaac's, except her speed is 0.15 slower. This means it's harder for her to dodge and close the distance. But the thing is, it's not like she really needs to dodge. For starters, she has an extra heart, which doesn't sound too bad, it's just another few hits. But the issues arise with her items. She starts with Yum Heart, which bumps her health to effectively 5, which is just another couple hits. The real issue is her full health pill, so slap another 3.5 hearts onto her for an effective HP of 8.5. So you should probably see the issue, right? Realistically, Maggie can just tank hits and not even bother dodging, and 2 to her high HP should just likely win by brute forcing it. So yeah, just like in the real game, Maggie can win just by face tanking everything. long story short, Cain gets destroyed. He's effectively just the worst Isaac. While yes, he does have slightly better speed and damage, it comes at the steep cost of lower HP and lower range, meaning that he dies faster and needs to be even closer to hit his attacks, making him really vulnerable. Additionally, unlike Isaac, he has no tricks. He has no useful tools for this fight. He has Lockfoot, which has no effect unless we start adding critical hits into the mix. Lockpick is also useless, and his key doesn't help either. All in all, he's really just Isaac, but worse. And you saw what happened to Isaac. So Cain here doesn't stand a chance, and as of now is the easiest fight. Judas is an interesting case, being the textbook example of a glass cannon. He hits incredibly hard on his own, and with the Book of Belial hits like a truck. However, that comes at the heavy cost of only having one heart to his name. Judas is literally all about damage and having no other tricks to his name, bar 3 coins. And while I may be very poor, bribery is no way to win a fight. So ultimately, after thinking about it, I do think I win this fight. Mainly due to how fragile Judas is, as while Judas does have the damage to take me out extremely quickly, I don't think he's able to do enough damage before he dies himself due to his very weak HP. Now, before you say anything, yes, this fella does count as a unique character. His stats are different from both regular and Tainted Judas. So, Black Solitude, Black Judas, excuse me, I don't know what came over me there. So Dark Judas, to put it blunt, completely stomps me. Dark Judas starts with the highest base damage out of every character at 7, and he even has slightly higher speed at 1.1. All that comes with no downsides either. With all that, it's fairly obvious who's got the advantage. But what really ruins me is his health. See, Dark Judas has black hearts, and they're going to be my kryptonite for this entire video. Now, you know when you lose a black heart, all enemies take damage? This effectively means that all characters with black hearts have thorns, and boy do they hurt. So with all that in his favour, it's fairly safe to say I'm not winning this fight. Long story short, I get wiped out, and it's likely not for the reason you think it'd be. So Eve's stats are pretty wonky. Her starting damage is lower than Isaac's at 2.73, while her speed is higher at 1.23. And with only 2 HP, she's fairly similar to Cain. But her problem lies in her items. Horror of Babylon gives her 1.5 damage and 3 speed when she's down to a heart, making her really powerful. Pair that with Razorblade and she can get up to 7.21 damage. I honestly would say that she'd likely win due to this high damage and high speed alone, but that's not why I lose. Dead Bird is why I lose. Upon Eve taking damage or using her Razorblade, Dead Bird is going to start attacking me. Dead Bird is problematic as I can't kill it. The reason for this is, as stated, one of the rules states that I must follow the systems in-game, and since most familiars can't die to enemies, this means I can't kill Dead Bird, as it can't die in-game. So once Dead Bird comes out, Eve can just start running away from me and letting Dead Bird do all the work for her. Also remember that speed up she'll gain, so yes, I unfortunately lose to a bird. Blue Baby is basically just Isaac, except he has slightly, and I do mean ever so slightly, more damage. The main difference is his gear. Having no starting pickups, her items bar the poop. So I'll have to discuss the poop as there is a very small chance it will help Blue Baby. So when you destroy a poop, there is a 10% chance it drops an item. Now, 3/4 of the time it will be a coin, and thus is useless in this scenario. Then, 1/200th of the time it will drop the petrified poop, which is also useless. However, 1/4 of the time it will drop a heart, and there's a very, and I do mean very small chance, it will either be a soul or black heart. So he has to basically win the lottery just for an extra 1 heart. Though even in the scenario that the heart does drop, ultimately it doesn't help even if it is a black one. I do still think I win, as 99 out of 100 times, I'm just doing a slightly harder Isaac refight. Before anything, can we please talk about Samson's character selection sprite? Why does he look like that? No, seriously, why does he look like that? It doesn't look like his in-game sprite at all. So anyway, stat-wise, Samson starts with lower fire rate and lower range. He has to get in a lot closer to start dealing damage with his tears, while also dealing less damage overall as he has a slower fire rate. However, he does have slightly higher speed, meaning that he can close the distance and get away easier. His main gimmick and only useful item is Bloody Lust. The way it works is giving Samson a damage up on every hit. When the more damage Samson takes, the harder he'll hit back. The first hit gives a 0.5 increase, and every hit after gives a 0.2 increase, up until the 6th hit, where it gives 1.5. Since Samson only has 3 hearts, the highest damage he can have is 8 when he's on half a heart. So, to be honest, I don't think I can win this fight. Samson's damage just goes up way too fast, and with 3 hearts, by the time he's down to 1 heart, he's likely already dealt serious damage. So I think overall I'll have to give another win to Isaac's. You know, I'm actually feeling pretty confident. Afraid. Okay, yes, he's strong, but I'm sure I could... yeah, I know he's got brimstone, but if I just... Bedtime. 1, 2. Yeah, okay. I think it's fairly obvious I'm not beating what's considered the strongest starting character. Flight, brimstone, 3 black hearts, and fairly high speed. Before anything, let's give Lazarus a congrats on the glow-up of the century he got in Repentance. But anyway, stat-wise he's just Isaac with worse range, however his strength lies within his items. Lazarus starts with Anemic, meaning when he takes damage he leaps Creep, which does mean he gets passive damage and could potentially just run away from me to force me to take damage from the Creep. Though overall it's not too serious and is avoidable. Before talking about his other item, I'm going to talk about his main gimmick, which is his Revive. Upon losing all of his health, Lazarus will revive with 1 HP and increased stats. He gets more speed, damage, and range. So he gets a pretty beefy upgrade from death. The main thing that makes this fight so hard to determine for me was his other starting item, which is a pill. This has a lot of issues. Due to its inherent randomness, it's hard to say how this affects the outcome of the fight. Sometimes the pill could potentially be a full health or a Horf. Others, it may just be a health down or explosive diarrhea. So for the sake of it, I'll say it doesn't affect the outcome too heavily, though it will likely be in his favor if it does. Combining everything together, Lazarus has essentially 4 HP thanks to both his health pulls, passive creep damage, and a potentially strong pill, and pretty good stats on top of all that. Realistically, I just don't think it's winnable, due to how much things he's got going for him. Okay, so I don't beat Eden, however, he doesn't beat me either. For me to explain this, I'll need to explain Schrodinger's Eden. See, before starting any Eden run, you don't know if you're gonna get items and stats heralded by lazy Matt himself, or a run taken straight from the pits of hell. Due to this, I can't really say I beat Eden, but I also in good faith can't say he beats me, because there's literally infinite possibilities, meaning that there's infinite universes where he beats me, however there's infinite universes where I beat him. So I'll have to put him in his own category. Infinite. Do I even need to say anything about this guy? His stats are the exact same as Isaac, and he has no useful items or pickups. The only item he carries is his mantle, which gives him an extra hit. Speaking of those, he can only take 2 before dying. Also, just to clarify this, flight in these scenarios don't actually allow those who have it to just fly out of range, as in the game, flying characters still get hit by grounded ones. For example, the Lost can still get hit by spiders. Short story very short, he gets destroyed. I'd say that's accurate based on how he works in-game. So her stats are identical to Isaac, except she has 2 black hearts. If that wasn't bad enough, she also has double the firepower through Box of Friends. Incubuses themselves are a problem because I can't kill them, and due to Incubus keeping a distance from Lilith, she can theoretically keep Incubus near me and stay back herself. So all in all, this is fairly unwinnable. Too much firepower and safety for Lilith with effectively no downside, on top of the 2 black hearts I'd need to chew through. So the Keeper's interesting. He does have higher starting damage, but that comes at the cost of lower fire rate, lower speed, and only 3 hits to his name. Granted, he does have triple shot, so his damage output can theoretically be at max tripled, which means that ultimately he does probably do more DPS overall than Isaac when he's up close. When it comes to his items, he has a pickup, which is a bomb, but we already discussed why they're ultimately not too great. The next one is more interesting because while his health is low, he can actually take up to 5 hits if he gets lucky, through his active Wooden Nickel. though his chances aren't great. 41% of the time when he uses wooden nickel, he'll not get a coin, and thus no extra hit. 52% of the time he'll get a penny, giving him an extra hit. And 7% of the time, he'll either get a nickel or a dime, giving him 2 extra hits. Though even at his max hits being 5, which only happens 7% of the time, he's still weaker HP-wise than Isaac overall. And while he does hit hard, his fire does slightly limit him. Due to all that, I do think it's my win due to how luck-based his chances at survival are. So, Apollyon is just Cain, but worse. Somehow. He has all of Isaac's stats, except he only has 2 hearts. He has no pickups and only starts with Void, which is, well, pretty useless. Yeah, long story short, he gets completely stomped. Also, side note, yeah, I'm sure some people are gonna argue that Apollyon is technically a statue, and thus I wouldn't be able to actually damage him and would likely hurt myself trying. However, in-game, literal bugs like spiders and flies hurt Apollyon, so I think I'll be fine. This is the guy that brings a weapon to a fist fight. He starts with effectively the same stats as Isaac, except he has fairly high damage. Additionally, his bone club has quite the reach to it. His melee range is fairly strong and fairly wide, and he can also throw it if need be. So he's got pretty good coverage all around. He also has his soul, which has the same stats as Isaac, bar his speed, which is very high. When we combine their HP, they have effectively 4 hearts, which in this case is actually fairly strong, as the Forgotten could just swap between his souls and himself if I'm close to damaging one of them, effectively dodging the attack. So somehow, the skeleton of the kid I beat up a while ago has came back to life and has got his revenge on me. So Bethany's stats are the exact same as Isaac, and with no pickups it looks like another stomp. But Book of Virtues has the potential to do a whole lot of damage. She can spawn in 2 wisps. Their tears deal only 3 damage, which means she has some extra firepower, however not a lot. However, if the wisps hit me, they deal 2 times Isaac's damage. So in this case, they'll deal 7 damage on contact, which will destroy them but will deal fairly decent damage to me. Due to the natural defense the wisps give her and the offense they also add, I do think Bethany wins, though it is by the skin of her teeth. So let's state the obvious. This is a 2 versus 1, which sways the odds heavily in their favour. For simplicity, let's just compare their stats to Mario and Luigi's from their games. Jacob is the Luigi, having less damage but more health, while Esau is Mario, having less HP but much higher damage. Together they are very strong, however there is one potential weakness. The brothers are soulbound. If one falls, so does the other. So the easiest method in this fight would be to target Esau, as he's overall weaker, HP wise. The problem is, they could easily just both attack me, and if I do manage to get one of the brothers low, he can just disengage and let the other brother take care of the rest. In all honesty, there is not a world where I manage to win. I think they would just be way too synced up for me to find an opening to take one out. Plus their damage output is insane. So yeah, that's me defeating a bunch of 6-year-olds. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and... What the fuck? It was a beautiful day in Yakutsk, Russia. And in the local KFC, Isaac was working away, having the time of his life. And all was well, until in walked the biggest coward known to man, the biggest loser, the nerdiest nerd, the weakest bitch, me. I cowardly walked up to the cashier and asked for only the most cowardly of meals. Could I please have 1 popcorn chicken meal? After receiving my meal, I left, and I returned home, feeling no nausea or strange feeling. When I got home, I happily opened up my meal and... So he's just Isaac. Same health, same stats. Hell, he even has Isaac's bomb. And editor me here, I'll be showing up a few times during the Tainted section. Turns out, Tainted Isaac doesn't actually start with a bomb. He starts with a single coin. Turns out the fight's even easier than we thought. He's literally just Isaac, but abused. So yeah, I win again! Actually, I don't know how I feel about winning this one this time. There is no chance in hell I win against this de facto melee character. If we include her yum heart, she effectively has 4 hearts. Now, in theory, I could attempt to wait out 2 of those hearts, as they'll need to bleed out. Though, I'll need to dodge both Tainted Maggie and the creep she leaves behind. But let's say I could manage it. I managed to dodge the creep and Maggie for 40 seconds. So now she only has 2 hearts. And let's say I'm really beefy today, just oozing strength and can take a heart with 1 strike. So I only need to hit her twice, right?
Need a hug? 1, 2, 3.
Well, remember Maggie will hug on contact. Well, that's fine, right? It's only 2 hugs. Well, here's a fact you probably didn't know. Maggie's hugs deal a whopping 6 times her attack stat. So even at my best, I need to tank 2 hugs. 2.73 times 6 is 16.38. 16.38 times 2 is 32.76. And remember, that's her just doing literally nothing. She has built-in black hearts without having black hearts. Isn't that swell? Suffice to say, this just isn't happening. I die the moment I touch her. Tainted Cain's fight is basically just a refight. Same stats and health. The only difference here is his new item, his bag. Now, if this were a real fight, Cain could probably get the bag over me and choke me out or something, but as we've stated, Isaac rules, so all he can do is swing it. Now, while the bag does have good range and fairly strong knockback, its downside is its damage, as it only does a whopping 3. So while in theory, Cain could try and play keep away, realistically it wouldn't do much and he couldn't do it for long. So ultimately I'd break through and just clobber him as he's just Cain. Ultimately it's another win for me. Tainted Cain is just regular Cain with a Tesco's reusable shopping bag. You know, I'm actually feeling fairly confident. I destroyed regular Judas and he was a cakewalk. So I'm sure his tainted version is also a complete joke.
Right behind you.
Ah, shit. Yeah, let's not kid ourselves, I stand 0 chance. While Tainted Judas has weaker damage than his regular counterpart, he makes up for that fact by having an extra heart, both being black by the way. Though even if he only had half a heart to his name, I'd probably still lose due to his main shtick. Dark Art. Tainted Judas can literally just play like a coward. By just keeping away until Dark Arts is up, then charging me, which is successful, hurts me, and increases his strength, then just backing off until Dark Arts recharges and rinse and repeat. So yeah, Judas just completely annihilates me, I can't stop him. If we're being fair, the smell alone would likely kill me, and if the smell didn't kill me, the fire, poison, concussion, explosion, explosion the second, explosion the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, fly barrage, tear barrage, or blunt force trauma would. Tainted Blue Baby is unironically just a wizard in this fight who casts spells by shitting himself. He has so many options, many of which cause additional status effects, which just straight up kill me if the initial poop didn't. He is genuinely one of, if not the hardest fights on the list. He just has way too much going for him. This one was really tough to determine, honestly, since her whole gimmick is sacrificing health. See, the more you whittle her down, the easier the fight gets, as she'll have less clots to work with. However, theoretically, she could just use her clots to body block and do all the fighting. Now, this is actually a rare occasion, as it's the only familiar in this list that I can actually kill. However, Eve can easily just recall her clots when they're weak, then respawn them with basically 0 penalty. While I do think this is just a long and drawn out fight, I would be extremely down to the wire. Ultimately, I have to give it to Eve. I think she just has too much control over the fight thanks to her massive potential DPS and clot defense, which if she plays well, just will never die. Hello, editor Mia here again. Just because I forgot to bring this up, because I forgot it existed, let's say for example I do actually break through her clot defense and win this Spore of Nutrition. Well, my reward is getting stabbed. Something a lot of people, myself obviously included, forget is that Tainted Eve actually has a unique state. When she has half a heart and no clots, a Whore of Babylon-like effect occurs and she turns into a monster, turning her needle into Mom's knife. Is that a Silk Song reference? Anyway, no chance in hell I'm winning this one. This took me a lot of research and testing to determine the outcome of this fight, as the entire thing came down to if Samson could realistically activate his rage mode. So, can he? No. The way I tested it was to bring his health down to half a heart, then count the amount of tears it took to activate rage. After taking 5 hits, Samson would need to land 20 tears for his rage to activate, which at that point, he'd already be dead, as he is literally a worse Isaac without being berserk, as he starts with worse range and worse fire rate. Okay, so when I was getting footage for this, for the example, it actually took me 38 tears to reach rage mode. I don't know why, but I started getting inconsistent results, ranging from 20 to 40. I tried researching how Samson's rage mode works, but I couldn't get anything consistent. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. In fact, the increased tier requirement just makes it even more grim for Tainted Samson. Yeah, anyway, just wanted to bring that up in case, because the example's not going to make any sense. So, yeah. Weirdly, the character a lot of you probably thought would rip me in two is unironically one of the weakest in this list. Well, we may have clipped his wings and his speed, but in return he technically got stronger. While his brimstone is now thinner, his range is now infinite. And on top of that, Azazel now has great knockback thanks to his sneezes. He's also retained his 3 black hearts. Azazel still easily destroys me, now probably even easier, as he can literally just snipe me and eventually corner me with brimstone or zone me with his sneezes then blast me. I theoretically couldn't even get close to Azazel this time. You'd think Tainted Lazarus would be fairly difficult, having 2 forms and all. However, similar to Samson, you'd be wrong. If we boil it down, both forms have a combined HP of 4.5, as the last hit would be fatal. Stat-wise, alive Lazarus is just regular Isaac, and dead Lazarus is also just Isaac, however with higher damage and weaker tier rate. And since they don't have any tricks or items up their sleeve, ultimately Tainted Lazarus is just a slightly buffed Isaac, fairly similar to Blue Baby actually, so it's a fairly easy win overall. Remember when we talked about Schrodinger's Eden? Well, this guy is what happens when we crank that to the extreme. Sure, Tainted Eden could start with Little Baggy and Damocles, but hitting him once could turn that into Godhead and Mega Blast, and vice versa. Which is the funny thing about Tainted Eden. Literally every time he's hit, it could just straight up decide the fight for either of us. However, while I did give Eden Infinity, and I will officially give Tainted Eden the same ranking as well, I will off the record say that if I was forced to decide a winner here, I'd have to give it to Tainted Eden, mostly because overall there's far more good items he can have than bad ones, and he only needs to take hits until he gets a great item. Also, he could theoretically reroll onto revive items before dying or healing active items, so yeah. Overall, I'd say off the record he'd have a higher chance of winning overall, but still, officially, it's still Infinity. Tainted Lost is literally just the Lost, though technically weaker. Why? Well, remember, he can't use his holy card until the fight actually starts. So technically, if I just rush him before he can use it, he's just gone instantly. And on the likely chance he can use it before I can reach him, well, he's stuck in that animation until it finishes, so I'll likely get a free hit, destroying the mantle anyway. So yeah, he's just the Lost, but a tiny bit worse. So to sum up how this fight plays out in one word,
Wapish!
even if Lilith didn't have her 2 black hearts of despair and agony, Tainted Lilith, Jello just wins. Jello's melee packs a punch, and with good whip range, he easily stomps me. If we weren't using Isaac rolls, there may be some chances I could either try and kill Jello, or even pull a good old Mario 64, so long, eh Lilith? But as you likely know, Jello in-game is invincible, so he's invincible in our fight as well. Even factored in Lilith's slower speed, Jello is just too good of a zoning attack, as even if she misses the whip, recalling and trying again takes less than a second. This is easily Lilith's, Jello's win. He's literally just a Polion, but a tiny bit worse as his fire rate is slightly lower. Similarly to his regular counterpart, his Abyss item doesn't do jack for this fight, so it's an easy win for me. Like regular Polion, I absolutely What's that buzzing noise? Okay, yeah, while this fight would be a complete slam dunk, Tainted Apollyon starts with one Locust, which can be launched and has effectively infinite range until they hit a wall. They deal Apollyon's damage, which is 3.5 for every tick they're attached to an enemy, so I actually will get shredded if it hits me. The only hope I have in this fight is to dodge the Locust shot, then try and reel on Apollyon while the Locust is on cooldown, which isn't very long. Ultimately, I want to give me this win because it's literally the same fight but easier. However, a literal bug completely flips the fight into a realistically unwinnable scenario. Isn't that grand? Tainted Keeper is actually kind of interesting. He's the only character that's easily weaker than their normal counterpart by a wide margin, at least for our scenario. For starters, he only has 2 hits, unlike Keeper's 3. This actually means he takes as much hits as the Lost to die. Pair that with the fact he doesn't have his wooden nickel anymore? Yeah, I think it's fairly obvious who wins. Even Quad Shot can't salvage him. He's far too frail to live long enough to capitalize on it. So, the way I see it, there are 2 scenarios to how this fight could play out. The first scenario is that I'm able to corner the soul and basically cockblock him from reaching the skeleton, effectively making him unable to fight back, granting me an easy win. Now, let's wake up from that lovely dream and face reality. The realistic scenario is Lost hurling the skeleton into my face, then just backing off until he has an opening to grab the skeleton and throw it again. The annoying thing is, I can't take my eyes off the skeleton, as he could easily swipe at me with his bone or hurl it at me, hurting me and potentially giving the soul time to recover the skeleton again. Additionally, I can't camp the skeleton. To prevent the soul from picking him up either, the skeleton just whacked me away. And say it with me, kids, since we're playing with Isaac rules, I can't just smash the skeleton's skull in, as in-game the skeleton is immune to everything and can't be attacked. This is another win for Isaacs, unfortunately, as the Forgotten just has way too much range and opportunities to attack, without much I can really do to fight back. So while Tainted Bethany's stats aren't that daunting, they're literally just Isaac's stats, the massive problem that gave me a massive headache determining this fight is her Lemageton. I don't, am I saying that right? Okay, Lemageton, that's apparently what he said. The massive problem that gave me a massive headache determining this fight is her Lemageton. Since she had blood charges, she's able to spawn in 2 passive items right from the get-go, which means we're running into the Eden problem once again, as Lemageton can spawn in nearly any passive item, so using it any combo of 2 can spawn Tiny Plant Brimstone, Linger Bean Mini Mush, the Wiz plus the Wiz, etc, etc. However, if I had to give my honest overall opinion after thinking it over, realistically, I think Bethany would win in basically every scenario. Why? Well, let me explain. Let's say, for example, Bethany got the Wiz and Tiny Planet. Well, they're actually pretty good for this fight, but she has a hard time landing hits. Well, if she wants rid of them, all she needs to do is ram into me with the Wisps, which deal a heavy chunk of damage and removes the item. The point I'm making here is that while Eden's downfall is the randomness being set in stone, Bethany can control her items to some extent, easily destroying the bad while dealing damage and keeping the good. So Bethany ultimately wins thanks to her control over her random items, thus destroying me. So this entire fight revolves around one thing. You know him. You hate him, Dark Esau. This entire fight's outcome revolves around who this guy snags first, and considering Jacob has really great control over Dark Esau with the Nema Sola, I am likely the one who's getting hit. Dark Esau would very likely outright kill me if the game considered me an enemy, though even if I did turn into the Lost like Jacob, I'm still one hit from death. So for our final fight, as much as it pains me to say this, Dark Esau wins. Well, I know you're curious, I am too, so let's tally up the results. Overall, I won 14 matches, which means unfortunately I lost 19. Realistically, that 19 would be 21 if we're being fair to the Edens and not putting them into infinity. So yeah, like the big manly man I am, I can't even beat a 6-year-old properly. God, how could I live up to my idols now?
Yo, Citro, I just want you to know this. Every time I lose a match to Isaac, I beat the shit out of my wife and kids.
But yes, if you enjoyed this video of me wheeling on a bunch of 6-year-olds, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hype. Bye-bye.